Rejection of objectification has always been a core value of feminism. But now we are in a time where women are told that our power lies in owning our sexuality, and it does. But in some cases, that so called empowerment also looks a lot like commodification. Sabrina Carpenter's album cover, Sydney Sweeney out here selling bathwater. And when we talk about creators like Bonnie Blue, let's make one thing very clear: there's only one Bonnie Blue and 1,000 men involved in the very situation. Same goes for OnlyFans. Because obviously the numbers don't lie. There are 4.19 million creators and a whopping 304 million consumers of that particular platform. That's the power imbalance. For every woman owning her sexuality, there are millions of people consuming it. And the system is cashing in off of both. Because when empowerment starts looking a lot like commodification, it is not the women who are winning, it is obviously the system which is profiting off of them. Now, before we get into all of this, let's just talk about the different waves of feminism. The very first wave started in the 90th, early 20th century, which was centered around very one clear goal: right to vote. It all kicked off in 1848, a convention in the US where women spoke about discrimination, lack of property rights, denial of education, and most importantly, not even being recognized as a full human being with autonomy over their own lives. At that time, women were bound to their fathers, husbands, with absolutely no right over their own possessions or even their children. Their demands were very simple but radical given the time. But here's the thing: although these ideas were very much alive in the 90th century, women only got this right much later, mostly after World War I. Because when men in World War I left for war, women entered the workforce in large numbers. They did the jobs they were told they shouldn't or couldn't do. They organized unions and gained power. And the government had no other choice but to acknowledge them. And after these rights were achieved, people thought this is it. And as we all have noticed, that this very first wave of feminism is highly depicted from the lens of white American women, excluding women of other class, race, and skin color. The second wave of feminism ran through 1960s to 1980s. One of its very central ideas is captured through a very famous phrase: one is not born but becomes a woman. This challenged the notion of femininity is something which is natural, showing how society thinks that men are at default and women are just there as objects. It also explains why so many areas of language, medical research have historically been male-centered, often putting women's life at risk. Another important work during this phase was addressing the sexism in workplace, education, and reproductive rights, and the dissatisfaction of housewives who were expected to put everybody else first. There were also these two guiding principles that emerged: the personal is politics, highlighting that the oppression isn't just visible in the workplace or politics, but in every aspect of their life. Within this exact wave, radical feminism became a very prominent subgroup as well. It criticized industries like beauty, adult industries, and adult entertainment as inherently sexist, sparking debates about how far feminist principles should extend. Now, moving on to the third wave. The third wave of feminism was built upon the second wave of feminism, just covering the blind spots. It emphasized on intersectionality, recognizing women's experiences depending on different race, skin color, classes. It also focused on reclaiming femininity, celebrating diverse ways of being a woman. Personal choice, individuality, and self-expression became the central point of topic. Moving on to the fourth wave of feminism, defined as digital activism, using social media to spotlight the inequality and mobilize actions globally. For example, the Me Too movement. It has also focused on body positivity and challenging traditional beauty standards and systematic oppression. Now see, personally, I am someone who's not the biggest fan of a few things that choice feminism pushes. Feminism gave women the right to choose, and that's vital. The right to speak, the right to decide for themselves. But not every action that a woman makes is inherently feminist. So, when we talk about bigger actresses, creators participating into a work that commodifies women, they are the ones who benefit financially. Good for them. But the society continues to reinforce the harmful stereotype and objectification. Cinema, pop culture, and media shape one's perceptions very deeply. Negative portrayals obviously travel faster than positive ones, and that is the impact that cannot be ignored. I do understand the point that they are working in a systematically male dominated industries, but when you are to a point where you have the choice to select the work that you get or you don't get, for example, Tripti Dimri. She is very new in the industry. We have seen her work and how great of an actress she is, but we cannot ignore the fact of how a couple of her movies or the item numbers that she had to do. But when we talk about actresses who are already established doing item numbers, I do sit down and question. After all of the money and everything that they have the power to say yes or no, yet repeating or falling into the same cycle they once stood against. Platforms like OF are another example. I don't see them as empowerment or glamorous at all. These systems are meant to exploit women while hiding the real toll it takes on their mental health, privacy, and their future. Young girls consuming such content are obviously attracted towards the glamorous life that is shown, still catering to the male gaze, while the system is profiting off both the creator as well as the consumer. We all have seen several interviews of actresses who are from the 90s up till 2010s who talk about how women are treated in Bollywood. Even in the year 2025, things haven't changed. Women are still often reduced to arm candy roles, misogynistic lyrics. Some might argue that filmmakers just give the audience what they want. I don't completely agree with it, to be honest. Every weekend, theaters sell us one shitty movie after the other. Houseful 4, 5, I don't know, being the prime example. And none of this is something the audience is asking for. Yet here we are week after week. The least they can do is stop commodifying women's bodies and for once take a little bit of responsibility, accountability towards the societal impact that things like these have caused. If they actually sit and decide that this is harmful, we won't be doing this. No one would light candles or march or protest to bring item numbers back. Trust me, nobody is going to do that. Yet the cycle repeats. Films with weak stories rely on women, objectification PR machinery working to just show that the actors involved are staunch feminists, and disgusting songs and visuals still influencing attitude towards women across India, far beyond the big cities, of course. This is the reason why I do not build parasocial relationship with creators, actors, actresses. I know they are not the people I and you should rely on when it comes to things which are this important and this sensitive. But in the era of social media, celebrity culture, this is where we are stuck. People like listening more about actors, actresses rather than actual issues, actual change makers or activists. Now, Audre Lorde's work uses of erotic. If you haven't heard it, read it, I will add it in the description or somewhere for you to go through. It wasn't just about Devil's Tango. If you get the Alex Myers reference, please do, because I don't know how YouTube would be fine with me using these words. But anyways, it wasn't about Devil's Tango, but it was more about power. The kind that comes with being deeply in touch with what brings you joy. Maybe meaning and connection. She argued that patriarchy teaches women to fear or cheapen the erotic feeling, either by diminishing it to being dirty or reducing it to core, a sensation without any feeling. The real erotic for her was fulfillment, creativity, solidarity that could actually transform women's life and also resist oppression. And if we pull that in today's world, it does shed light on how platforms like OnlyFans, Instagram, especially Instagram's algorithm, commodifies women's bodies under the promise of course, liberation. On the surface, of course, it feels empowering. Women choosing to do this on their own, monetizing their own image, reclaiming agency over how they are seen. But I don't know, maybe it raises a question. Is this really liberation or surface level, I don't know, maybe power that bends according to the market demand, male gaze, and capitalism? According to her framework, erotic is not something that can be consumed, bought. It's not about curating desires of subscribers or followers. It's about cultivating one's inner knowledge and joy that cannot be commodified. That's the tension today. We confuse visibility monetization with empowerment. Now, her work reminds us that deeper power lies in refusing to let our pleasure, creativity, and humanity be flattened into product. Now, Let's focus a little on Sydney Sweeney. Now, Sydney is an American actress who began her career back in 2009, but her breakout role started with HBO Max's Euphoria, where she played the role of Cassie. We all know. Since then, she has done White Lotus, Anyone But You, Madam Web, a few more here and there. And no matter what projects she is involved in, the conversation always circles back to her body. Because, of course, she's a woman in Hollywood. The cycle is always going to be the same. She's either hypersexualized or called ugly. Now, this is something which became painfully clear when screenshots of her scenes from Euphoria were circulated endlessly online, sent to her family members. I guess it was her interview with The Independent where she said, I'm very proud of my work in Euphoria. I thought it was a great performance, but no one talked about that because I got naked. I do the White Lotus and suddenly everyone's paying attention. People are loving me and asking what's next. And I'm like, did you not see Euphoria? Did you not see Handmaid's Tale? And that's the pattern. If she keeps her clothes on, she's an actress. If she doesn't, suddenly she's just a body. Sydney is not someone who's this typical stereotype of dumb bimbo. She's a valedictorian, 4.0 GPA, competed in robotics, knows multiple languages, is a mixed martial artist as well. But the internet rarely mentions any of those things. Screenshots of her body gets more likes. And then comes in the brand deal, where the line between empowerment and exploitation is jumbled. The biggest flashpoint being her collaboration with Dr. Swash, which is basically a men's soap brand. They released a limited edition Sydney Sweeney Bath Water Bliss, something like that. And you heard that right, I'm not really kidding. And the moment when I saw it, I thought this might be satire, but it wasn't. There were 5,000 pieces of this selling for $8. Later on, resellers were selling it for around $1,000. People were actually buying it. Well, men were actually buying it. And this is what makes it very messy. She obviously opened up about hating being objectified, about being reduced just to her body. So why really attach your name to a product or a brand like this? The answer is quite complicated. Some say that she's just cashing in on the joke, making a little bit of profit, but some argue it's pure hypocrisy. She speaks against objectification while simultaneously leaning into it. And honestly, it's hard to debate. She's clearly a victim of the male gaze. She didn't ask men to screenshot her pictures and circulate it online. Maybe that makes Sydney's case pretty fascinating and also frustrating. She embodies contradiction very, very perfect. She is intelligent, ambitious, talented. She is also sexualized, commodified, and occasionally participating into it. Imagine explaining this entire bathwater situation to someone 10, 12 years back. And this is not something which is done by her, invented the sales pitch. This was done by, I remember, Belle Delphine was the very first TikTok cosplayer gamer girl. It started as a joke, if I'm not wrong, and she started selling her bathwater $30 a pop and made millions from it. So yeah, Sydney Sweeney is in the first one. The OG bathwater seller is Belle Delphine. Now, with her, obviously, it's a sad case because when your entire audience is grown men, they'll hype you one day and forget that you ever existed. And I've seen several people already saying it that she's not pretty enough, she just has a good body. And that's the risk. When your entire image is based on your beauty, it also has a expiry date. Now, this is where I pause and think about the actresses from Zinat Aman to Malika Sherawat. For decades, they were celebrated for their beauty, their body, just to mock and abandon them when they age. Meanwhile, I also see women like Tabu, Vidya Balan, Shefali Shah, and several others who are making their own way. This obviously reminds us being desired can obviously feel powerful, but it's a very fragile kind of a power. Now, talking about Sabrina Carpenter, she's someone who represents this very subtle or just as telling careful packaging of the female sexuality, which is glossy, has a bow, is marketable. She has always leaned into this cheeky hypersexuality persona, her fans mostly being white women, if I'm not wrong. Think of her as someone who's very playful and feminism adjacent. She sings in a baby voice, wears bow, satin ribbons. Her entire brand and personality is being hyper feminine. Now, here in India, pop culture media sells or commodifies women, calling it modern, bold, item numbers like I don't even want to say them out loud. Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and several others. I see them popping up on reels and comments such as, oh, they were claiming their sexuality. And I feel at the end of the day, these songs were written for men to whistle in cinema halls. Now, back to Sabrina Carpenter's album Picture, which actually stirred the whole controversy. The image shows Sabrina on her force, wide eyed, her glossy hair being gripped by a man cropped out of the frame. Immediately, the reactions were obviously polarizing. Some thought this was just satire, some thought that she was degrading women, playing into again the violence and exploitation of women which happens by the hand of men, treating women as a dog or any other pet. Some thought this is just again her way where she kills a man in the end of the video every time. Maybe she's playing into some other character or something new for the album. Now, after hearing her album, it doesn't make sense to me personally. I don't see how this cover was relatable or how it played into the picture. I don't get it. I don't think so. The cover was needed, as several others feel the same. So, yeah. The point, so whether it's Sydney Sweeney, Sabrina Carpenter selling bathwater, or such sort of album covers, all of this circles back to the same system. Show more, sell more. Women may think that they are in control, but in reality, they are caught in an economy that knows exactly how to profit off of their body. From Bollywood to Hollywood, the script hasn't changed. Only the platforms have to an extent. If we don't start questioning it carefully, the line between genuine empowerment and market driven fantasy is only going to get blurrier. Now, talking about the next person, which is Bonnie Blue. She is a UK based adult entertainment industry actress, majorly working on OF. So, one of the most infamous things that she did was post her location online and allow usually college 18-19-year-old men to join her in Devil's Tango, and she did that with married men too. She thrives on scandals. She even claimed, or she actually did like Devil's Tango with 1,000 men in 12 hours. She was trying to break some world record, if I'm not wrong. And she even tried to break that record by doing that same thing with 2,000 men, creating a fake petting zoo where she would be tied up in a glass box and men can come in, do whatever they want to her. And this is where OF sort of banned her or suspended her for violation of policies. And here's where it gets tricky. Bonnie says that she's not someone who's broken or traumatized. Her work is something which is appreciated, and her parents are very proud of what she does. Her family is very supportive about it. But when all of these things, all of her facade is being stripped away, what is she really selling? It's misogyny, dehumanization of women, dressed up as empowerment. And I use the word empowerment because while I was looking up for this video, a lot of people were calling her work as empowering. She's taking control of herself, her body, and I don't get how. I seriously don't understand. And I obviously am not someone who's going to circle the entire conversation around Bonnie itself. I said in the start of the video as well, there's one Bonnie Blue and 1,000 men involved. Again, repeating the same thing. Why are people not talking enough about the men who are actually circling up, lining up to join her, to participate? Nobody's forcing them. The bigger point here is while platforms like OF are marketed as I don't know who is doing this and why are people agreeing to it as something which is empowering, Bonnie is someone who presents herself as she's in control, but the reality is way darker. And while we have discussed all of these topics, it's very important to talk about what is going on in the Indian pop culture space. Commodification, objectification of women in item numbers is not something which is done just by Bollywood but entirely by Indian cinema. And they still keep doing the same thing. The recent song by Guru Randhawa, where hopefully the dancer, and I guess so, the dancer in real life isn't a minor, but the way the storyline of the video and the entire song was, he was entering a school and there were schoolgirls who he was dancing and ogling at in a disgusting manner. What on earth was that? Next, you have Chetan Bhagat coming out with his new book where the female lead is 21, inexperienced, and the male lead is someone who's 33, divorced, experienced. I don't know who are these Wattpad girlies he's having tea with nowadays, because I thought this was just restricted to Wattpad and dark romance authors who think that exploitation abuse which happens towards women is something that they can use as easy plot lines to, sort of prove the bad things the male character that they create does in the entire book. No matter how much I try to point it out, people will still target me saying that I am questioning someone's creativity, but your creativity is entirely based on exploitation done or the abuse done towards women. Nothing else is left in the plot line other than assaulting, raping, kidnapping women, hitting women, done by the male lead, and she's supposed to forgive him every second. Sure, because it's dark romance. And all of these things combined are the reason I stay away from celebrity culture, and I don't build parasocial relationship or put anybody on pedestals. And this is a international marketing problem actually. The recent Fenty Beauty ad, they highlighted something women go through on a daily basis and which can be so disturbing as a way or a marketing gimmick to sell lipsticks. It's the year 2025, people. Year 2025. So, whether it's personal choice, family pressure, celebrity culture, advertising, women still are being commodified and objectified constantly, and I don't see any of these things stopping. And that is why fighting for your own agency, making your own decision, and refusing to be controlled is not just a personal choice, it's a necessity. End of the day, whether it's bathwater, album photo, OnlyFans, Bollywood item numbers, the story is going to remain the same. The objectification is going to continue, as I said, just in a prettier packaging every 2 years, calling it a marketing genius or new way of self empowerment. But if the system is profiting more than you do, taking a toll on your mental health, we have to sit down and question who is it actually helping. Real empowerment isn't about being consumed, it's more about refusing to let your worth be reduced down to a product. And until we start questioning the difference, objectification, commodification will keep disguising itself into feminism or new age empowerment. Anyways, that is it for today, and I'll see you guys, I don't know, on Friday or Saturday.